Hi, welcome. In this segment, you will be looking at the assessment Letter Naming Fluency, also known as LNF. LNF measures the ability to recognize and name letters of the alphabet fluently and with automaticity. In LNF, this is assessment that is given to beginning of the year kindergarten through beginning of the year grade 1. This does have student materials which you can find in your DIBELS assessment kit. In LNF, the student materials contain both upper and lowercase letters in random order. Students are asked to name these letters. The LNF is included in the student's overall composite score for DIBELS. However, there are no benchmark goals for LNF. It is simply determining how many letters they are able to name in 1 minute. This is a sample of what the student materials look like. And again, there is no progress monitoring forms for LNF. However, you can do this on your own on a piece of paper, or you could reuse the benchmark form for that particular benchmark period. In LNF, there are several reminders that you can give one time to the student as they are progressing through the assessment. If a student names letters from top to bottom or points randomly, you can tell them go this way and show them which way to go. If the student skips 4 or more consecutive letters but does not skip the whole row, you can say, try to say each letter name. If the student says letter sounds rather than letter names, say the letter name, not its sound. If the student is pointing so you can see where he or she is at, give credit for the correct letters named. If the student isn't pointing, do not give credit. Now, these are reminders that you can give as needed throughout the assessment period. When a student stops, and it's not a hesitation on a specific item, the teacher can say, keep going. So for example, if the student stops after the first row because they believe the assessment is done or waiting for an indicator to continue, you may say keep going. If the student loses his or her place, the teacher can point to the letter. Now I'm going to show you how to actually conduct the assessment using live demonstration. Alright, we are going to look at the LNF assessment. So what I'm going to do under my student here is find the LNF on the left side, scroll under the appropriate benchmark period and click on the blue symbol to begin the assessment. Once I click on the symbol, it's going to bring up a list of reminders. These are all the reminders we just discussed in the PowerPoint a second ago, but this will give you just a chance to look quickly through these, and then once you do many assessments, you'll have these memorized, and so you can click that and it will take it off, or you can leave them on. I always like to leave them on because I believe that it just helps you keep those in your head from assessment to assessment. Then you're going to go to the bottom right corner and click Proceed. At this point, you're going to see this little reddish circle. This is called Mr. Say, and Mr. Say tells you what words you should speak verbatim to the students. You should only speak the words that are in bold. The items that are in purple font are the ones that are actions that you will perform for the student or have the student do. So in this case, I would read verbatim to the student, I'm going to show you some letters. I want you to point to each letter and say its name. And I would do the action that's in the purple, which is to put the page of letters in front of the student. The letters are found in your assessment kit. Then you click the blue arrow to go to the next screen. Then Mr. Say tells me the next thing to say. So I would say start here, point to where they start, go this way, show them which direction to go, and then say each letter name and put your finger under the first letter and point to where they should start. At this point, I'm going to actually begin the assessment, so you need to be sure the student is ready and you are ready. This eye up here in the top right corner will show you some more information or give you the reminders again. The up arrow will take you to the screen previous this one and or out of the assessment depending where you are within the assessment. So I'm going to click the blue Begin button. At this point, you're going to see in the top left corner Mr. Say ready, begin. When you and the student are both ready, you will tell them those words verbatim. And you will click the blue start button in the middle. Now, you will not be able to score until you click the start button, so be sure you do that as soon as the student begins. So you click start and the timer begins. At this point, the student will start reading at the very first letter. You will go through following along with the student, and you will see here to the top right there are 3 diamonds that color up blue. As they go along, they're doing seconds. So those are your 3-second hesitation marks. That will be your indicator to move the student on to the next letter. You see here, this is your timer. It will go up to 60 seconds and the assessment will be done. At 55 seconds, the screen will flash yellow to indicate that your time is almost up. So what I'll be doing is going through and following the student, and I will click on the letter that they get incorrect. So I would click here and it's going to turn it red. If I find that a student did self-correct, then I would go back and click it one more time and it will turn it green. If by mistake I clicked a letter, then I can click it 3 times and it will take it clear again. If the student misses a row, I'm going to click the X and it will mark that entire row out. As you just saw, the screen went yellow and I knew that my assessment time was almost up. Now you see in the right hand corner it says press and hold the last letter red. Now what you will need to do is with your finger or with your writing utensil, you would need to come to the very last letter the student said out loud to you, and you're going to press and hold until you see the blue bracket come up. You may have to attempt this a couple times depending on the sensitivity of your screen, but it will come up. Once it comes up, all the letters that were not read will be dimmed. At this point, you click the word done in the top right corner, and it will take you to the results screen. Here, you have the patterns box, you have the motivation box, and the review screen. If I click review, it's going to take me back to that assessment so that I can make note of what the student did read correctly and what the student did not read correctly and what they self-corrected on. Now that you have seen L&F in action, here are some common scoring rules that you want to be aware of. The first one is self-correction. Tap the letter again to rescore the response within 3 seconds. So if you tap a letter red because they had it incorrect and they self-corrected, then just tap it one more time as long as they said it within that 3-second period, and it will turn it green. You may mark sounds that articulated in a certain way that a student says on a regular basis in the classroom, that you know they're saying the correct sound, even though they may say it in a different dialect or a different way of articulating that sound, but you know that that is the sound that they are saying because they commonly say that in the classroom. You may mark that correct. After 3 seconds, and the student has not said the letter, then you should mark that letter incorrect and have them to move on. The discontinue rule for this assessment is if a student misses all letters in the first row of the measure, the device prompts the assessor to discontinue. In this particular assessment, L&F, a lot of times because of the print, students will misname lowercase l and uppercase I. So in this case, you may mark either one of them correct if they have them mixed up, but only if they say the L or the I for those particular letters. In this case, you're going to indicate an incorrect or a skipped letter by tapping the letters, but for a skipped row, then you tap the X that precedes it. Now it's important that you tap the X because this marking technique gives different information than if you tap each letter, which indicates the student missed each letter. The 10 letters in a skipped row do not affect the student's score because the final score is the number of letters correct in 1 minute. The letters in a skipped row are not counted as incorrect or correct. So it's important that you mark the X if a student skips a row instead of marking each letter incorrect so that it doesn't count against them. This is just a quick reference to show you some items that would be considered correct in L&F and would be considered incorrect in L&F. This is an example of the results screen. Because there are no cut points for L&F, there are going to be no red, yellow, or greens show up on this particular bar. The numbers below the bar and the runner man indicates the range of possible letter names per minute. So in this case, the student received or said 43 letters in 1 minute out of 110 possible letters. Now, in reviewing an assessment, you can go back and look and see what it is that a student actually did say on the assessment so that you'll know what letters they get correct and incorrect at the end of the assessment, or at any time you can go in and look at this. one thing it will show you is letters that were read correctly will be highlighted, and then letters that were incorrect or skipped will be red, and then anything that was skipped, it will be grayed out with a line through it. This provides a visual record of the student's responses. You cannot edit data at this time, so once you end the assessment and click done, you cannot go back in and edit. The letters in the gray are not factored in the student's score. Now, if for some reason the assessment had to be interrupted through a fire drill or an emergency situation within the classroom, you may invalidate the assessment, but this is only in rare cases because you want to be sure that you get the student's first indication of what they know in the assessment. So we only invalidate the assessment if it's an emergency situation that allows the student not to show what it is that they know from the first chance. The way that you do that under the review tab would be just to click probe not valid and then invalidate the assessment. There are also other tabs you can see on the left side of the screen when you're looking at the results screen. It will have a box that says patterns, and this will have several different statements of things that the student may have done over and over. This is a good place to go in and mark something that a student has repeatedly done throughout the assessment that you want to keep record of. There's also a motivation tab, which will show you whether the student was into the assessment, was not into the assessment, was unfocused, was uninterested. This is a good way to keep records if the student was having a really bad day. This way you will know how they were emotionally in terms of the assessment. And these are just a few points to remember for L&F. L&F is a reliable indicator of risk. We do not penalize students who confuse the lowercase letter L with the uppercase letter I. There is no progress monitoring for L&F, and there are no benchmark goals for L&F. However, it is included in the calculation for the composite score for VIBLES.